We're live. Hello, everyone. I am excited to be live streaming with you this office hours thing. So let me just share my screen here. Actually, really quick, let me do one other thing. And we're ready to rock and roll. So we're live. Hello. And it's working. Oh, I need to grab that link, send it to my Discord folks. And there you are. All right. So let's share this screen and just briefly explain what is office hours. So office hours is an opportunity for you to ask me anything that you like, and I will do my best to answer your questions. And sometimes my answers are insightful, and sometimes they're just like, I don't know. So I do my best. And yeah, so twice every week I do this. Today is the Thursday, the 12th. And yeah, I guess that's all. So I answer the questions of people who are on the Zoom call with me. And if we run out of people who have questions in the Zoom call, then we go to the office hours chat in Discord. And so you can join us at our Discord, which yeah, right here, we have that link to get you in the Discord. And yeah, and it's just a good time. So without any further ado, what questions do you have? And if there are no questions in here, that's fine. So I'll just go ahead and bring this over. Whoop. And we'll take a look at questions that people have queued up. And it hasn't happened yet, but it's possible that we run out of questions, and that's fine. And I'll just end early if that happens, and I won't be offended or anything. Just people aren't asking questions, so that's fine. Okay, Edmund, I saw this question earlier and mentioned that I could answer it during office hours. And Edmund actually did get an answer of how to avoid the problem. And Ricardo did a good job of explaining why this happens. Actually, I feel like he did somewhere where this question was asked originally, but I wanted to show what's going on to dive a little bit deeper into this. So let's see. Yeah, so we have this utils, and it's exporting this function. And then where we're using it, we want to mock out this function because for some reason we don't want to actually validate the image, whatever. And so the solution here was to say, hey, let's reassign this validate image thing. And so this is the important key right here. And I'm going to take us over to AST Explorer, where I'm going to paste this. We'll zoom that in a little bit into here. And this is going to tell us what typically what most JavaScript engines are going to interpret this code as. Now, that's not entirely true. This is just the Babel parser, and there are a lot of different parsers. And I don't know of exactly what, like each JavaScript engine is going to parse this differently, but this is a pretty good example. So if we click on this, then it updates what AST abstract syntax tree node we are. So this is how we can describe each bit of each one of these bits of code. That's what AST Explorer is all about. So here we have our import declaration, and that has a number of specifiers. In particular, it has a default specifier, and that's what we're hovering over right now. The actual validate image string of text right here is called an identifier, but it is a import default specifier. So it's actually not a variable. So if we created a variable and we click on that, you'll notice this is also an identifier, but it is called a variable declarator. And so we can assign it to things. Because it's a const kind, then it will be a syntax error to try and reassign this one. But we could call this let, and then we can say variable equals yo, and that works fine. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. So why can we not reassign this validate image? What's so special about validate image if I try to reassign that? Well, we're not actually going to get a syntax error in here, but this is a syntax problem, and that's because validate image is not an assignable variable. It's kind of like const, how you can't reassign const. Import default specifiers are also not reassignable by the spec. So technically it might work with compilation and weirdness, but according to the spec, if you were to run this in a browser or any JavaScript engine that actually supports this, it is not going to work because you cannot reassign import specifiers, whether it be the default import or anything else, a named import. You can't do that. That is against the 10 commandments of ES modules. And there's a good reason for this. It's because we want our imports and exports to be statically analyzable, in particular for loading these different modules, as well as just being able to build out these module trees for optimizations and stuff. So according to the spec, ES modules are statically analyzable, and therefore you cannot reassign those values. So the problem was that we're trying to mock out this value, and that's not working. And so the solution is, and actually here, if we try this, this is what's kind of one of the things that's interesting right here. I'm just going to copy this so we get syntax highlighting. So we've got our utils, and if I were to export a object called utils and then give it a validate image property, and then I import that, then I can say, hey, module, I want to take your utils, which is an object, and I want to reassign that. Now, the reason this works is because the utils is part of the namespace here. So we can't modify the namespace, which is this module. That's what this is called, is a namespace specifier. So we can't reassign that, but the property utils on it, and actually we wouldn't be able to reassign utils because this is part of the namespace as well. But any properties on that can, like, that's fair game. You can mutate that, you can do whatever you want to, because we don't need that to be statically analyzable. We just need the specific exports to be statically analyzable. So so that's why this works, and this would work in any environment today. You could totally do this. So the solution that Ricardo, for the core problem, like how do I mock out a default export of a module, Ricardo gave the perfect solution using jest.mock, and that just automatically mocks all functions. And you can provide your own mock factory function here as well, which is kind of interesting. You can take a look at that. I think that I think that this originally was asked in the mocking fundamentals of mocking. Here we go. Was it asked in here? No, it wasn't. So anyway, I can't remember where this was asked originally, but I actually showed you how all of this works and explained to you why this is a problem in testingjavascript.com. So if you want to dive a little deeper, then testingjavascript.com we actually build Jest mocking capabilities in these videos. So I show you, here's how here's the thing that we're trying to do. Here's how you do it in vanilla JavaScript, and here's how you use the Jest APIs to do that same thing. It's actually really cool, and we do it pretty quickly, just in 15 minutes. But you learn a lot about how mocking works in that time. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful to you, Edmund, and everybody else watching. And thank you, Ricardo, for being awesome. Ricardo is a really great member of our community. So thank you, Ricardo. Okay. We've got another one here from George, and he's not in the call right now. He goes, or it looks like he goes by George, but now I'm Zhen Hao. That's right. That's his name. So Zhen Hao had a question. I haven't read this yet, so just give me a moment to read through this really quick. I have been feeling better, actually. I had COVID, but I'm all recovered, and life is as good as it ever has been, as far as that is concerned. Yeah, okay. Okay, yes. So the answer to this question is yes. Let me take an example here. So we'll just open up our console, bump that up a little bit. So let's say that I've got a function, or let's see, Yeah, function app. This is no React stuff here. And here I'm going to say my sum or my A equals 1 and my B equals 2. And then my, yeah, I'm kind of starting to think this isn't a good way to explain this, but we'll continue anyway. And then we'll say console.log, or here, let's get our sum equals A plus B. And then we'll console log our sum. Okay, so then we say app, there we go. Everything's great. But what if I wanted to take this logic right here and put it somewhere else? So I wanted to take the A assigned to B, or A assigned to 1, B assigned to 2, and then the sum. So I would make a function out of that, right? That's how we do this stuff in JavaScript. So I'm going to say, I'll just call it, well, make sum. Okay. And I'm just going to copy this. And we'll put all that right there. And then I can say return sum. And then I'll rewrite my app so that it uses that. So instead of doing all this nonsense, I'm going to call make sum. And we can get rid of all of that. Okay, so we've just moved that logic into a separate function. And our end result is going to be the same. It's like, as far as a user of this thing is concerned, it doesn't make a difference. We've just moved some logic around. We're calling some extra functions. That's irrelevant. And so in the same way, when you use another hook, that hook is just getting called. React doesn't even know that hook exists. It is totally irrelevant. The only hooks that React knows exist are the built-in ones: use state, use effect, use callback, all those. So as like however you want to organize and put things around in different functions, that's totally irrelevant. React doesn't even, like, as far as React is concerned, your component is just like one giant thing of hooks and then returning some JSX. And then you can separate that into different functions and do all sorts of JavaScripty things with that. And that's the same basic principle. Once you stick something in a function, all that, the only impact that makes is putting in another line on the call stack. Outside of that, it doesn't actually make any substantive difference. So yes, when you are using another hook, if that hook is using use state, then that use state call is associated to whatever component you're currently rendering, React is currently rendering at the time that it's called. Hopefully that answers your question. This is an important piece of information to understand. Let me read this next half of the question. Okay, yeah. It looks like query comma data. So is that query and data? I think, and then there's a dot right there. So I'm not sure if, I'm guessing it's dot data for all of these. And yeah, so thought it's not a primitive. Yes, it does do memoization under the hood, just like Ricardo is saying here. It does a lot of stuff to make it so that things work seamlessly for you. So you don't have to worry about memoizing things yourself, which is one of the things that is it's really awesome at. For example, your query function that you pass to use query, you don't have to memoize that. And if you've ever tried to build your own use async hook like we do in Epic React, then you'll know that that is not a necessarily easy thing to accomplish. Well, it's easy, but it's not straightforward. It's not like the first thing that you're going to think of. And so, yeah, they manage all of that for you, so you don't have to memoize anything, and it works out really nicely. So. I'm not sure I understand this one. Here, let me just review this really quick. Yeah, I'm actually not sure about this, just like Ricardo. I'm not 100% positive because I know that React Query has done a lot of things to kind of be able to update things in place so that if you have just like one thing changing in an array of a bunch of things that it doesn't trigger re-renders of everything. I can't remember. I remember talking with Tanner about some of the optimizations they made to reduce re-renders and stuff. And there was something about updating things in place rather than just replacing all of it. So yeah, I've never had a use case where I needed, or I'm trying to think of a use case where I needed to put the query data in a use effect. I don't think that I've ever had anything like that, so I can't really speak to this from a experience standpoint. But yeah, like Ricardo said, it would be kind of nice to have some more details about this in React Queries documentation. What I would suggest is if you run into a problem in doing this, you notice like stale use effects or something, make a minimal reproduction and take it over to the React or the TanStack Discord because they're great and they can help you with that stuff. So anyway, hopefully that is helpful. Good luck. Yago, what
It,
is up?
it's me. So my
Did I
question
pronounce your name
is,
right? I'm just making it up. Is it Yago?
yeah, it is Iago.
Cool.
So my question is, I made this use the bounce hook. It accepts a callback in a delay, and I was wondering if, like, I made this use the use layout effect to keep a reference to the callback. I wonder if that's the best way to keep like the callback memoized, so it's safe to use inside other effects.
Yeah, yeah. I need to write a blog post about this because this is a pretty common pattern and it comes with trade-offs that I don't think that everybody appreciates. Um, and it's not super well understood. Like, so this pattern is basically taking us back to the class's defaults where all of your functions just always had access to the latest version of props and state. Whereas with hooks, it kind of changed that default to being it always has access to the version of props and state that existed at the time the function was created. And that's a subtle but important difference in certain situations. And so if that new default doesn't work for you, then this is the pattern that you follow. And this is what I was actually just talking about with React Query. It does this. It follows this same sort of pattern. So anyway, let me take a look at this use debounce that you've got here really quick, and then I can think about this. Hmm. So I've never seen a debounce written quite like this. Hold on a second, because you really shouldn't need to have this debounce function utility function built in or built inside um, of React or yeah, inside of a React component. And this, I'm trying to think of the situations that where this could be a problem. Probably is fine, but um, I think it could probably be simplified. Um, shoot, where is?
Yeah, I think we could move it outside. You wouldn't. I don't think it would make much of a difference. But then I would have to pass the timer ref probably.
Yeah, yeah. So this is, I think, what I normally do is we have a timer variable right here. And I don't bother with checking because it doesn't matter whether it exists or not. This won't throw an error or anything. So we'll just pass the timer there and then we can say timer goes that. So that way you don't have to worry about this being like you don't need to have a timer ref at all. You can get rid of all this. So one thing to keep in mind, anytime you're using a use ref, when you call that, the only time that this first argument matters is on the first render. and thereafter it doesn't matter, it's not a big deal, because basically what's happening here is you're creating functions that aren't that just are ignored. So it's like, who cares? I can do this all day long. Like, I don't care. But it's just something to keep in mind. So
I can make like a use lazy ref then just to
yeah,
make sure
yeah.
that on
I
the
probably shouldn't have even mentioned it, because it doesn't matter. This is fine. I think this is probably fine. No, you're returning a cleanup function that calls the debounce. Is there a reason that hold on a second. So sorry, no, that's not a cleanup function. These are separate things. There we go. And you're just returning a stable version of the callback. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I have an example down there of using being used inside a effect. So you can see it only runs once because it has a stable reference. You can update the count how many times you want, and it's still gonna just increment.
Yeah, very good. Okay. I think this is fine. Here, let me show you something really quick that might be helpful. It is in our book screen. And write down, oh, no, that's a test. Screen book. There we go. So I'm using this module debounce function. That's basically, I'm pretty sure it basically just does this. But you could look into it if you're curious. But what
Yeah,
I
look
do
at it.
is I use React use memo with that. And I memoize the callback. And this works out okay for me because React Query keeps, this is coming from React Query. This is that mutate goes through React Query. But this works out okay for me because mutate is stable. So I never worry about use memo rerunning and unnecessarily or whatever. Yeah, but this is an important point, is like whenever you're dealing with a debounce, you need to make sure that the same function that's called every time as like I'm clicking on this increment or decrement, whatever, that same function is always going to be the same one. Otherwise, they're going to have different timers. And so then they'll be on totally separate timers. You won't have the clear timeout on the timer for the one and then the other. So you want to make sure that they're the same. And you're doing that effectively here with the by using a ref for this. And so that ends up working. And so actually one thing that I would do here though is, actually, no, this is fine. Hold on. No, I don't think that this is fine, because every re-render, you're going to be creating a new function, which creates a new set of timer and clear timeouts. So if let me try to demonstrate the problem. If we
Can I
had,
only create like a timer when I call the function though?
So let me demonstrate the problem, and then I think it'll make more sense. So I'm going to grab, here, let me just go ahead and fork this now. So what I need to have happen is I need a re-render to happen while I'm doing this increment. So that's what I'm going to build right now, is just a React use effect that sets interval. And so every 500 milliseconds, we're going to have my my count use state 0. And we'll just render this right here. And then in here, we'll say set my count to count +1. And we'll see if Code Sandbox can manage this. Here we go. Okay, so you'll see that it's getting updated. Whoa. What the heck? Okay, so I didn't expect this. Hold on a second. Let me stop that. We're gonna refresh. Oh, right. Dependency array. We were setting a million intervals. Okay, so now we're getting an update every 500 milliseconds. That's updating. So what's happening now is every 500 milliseconds, we're getting a re-render of our app component. And so when our app component re-renders, then use debounce is going to get called, and this use layout effect is going to get called. So we're going to make a new debounce that is going to be the latest version of the debounce. So now if I click on increment a bunch of times, you notice that it's actually not debounce. I'm still clicking it. It should be debouncing all of these clicks, and it shouldn't actually update any state, but it is. And the reason that's happening is because we're creating individual debounce function instances. And so we have like totally separate timers that are not getting cleared by themselves. So that's why this doesn't work. This is not going to work. The solution is actually basically doing what I'm doing right here. And so if we do this, and we'll, yeah, here's our debounce. Here's the callback. And then here's where the things get a little bit tricky. So here, and we're not going to do a wait. Oh, we've got a delay. Here we go. Delay. So normally you're going to need to do a callback right in here. And we'll return this value. But we're actually going to have the same problem. Right. Why is this giving me a warning? Oh, delay. Right. Sure. Okay, we're going to have the same problem here. Well, we should have the same problem here. Huh, that's weird. Hold on a second. What's this callback? Set count. Oh, actually, we're fine because this is set count. But let's imagine that it's not. Let's make our own set count, because this is what you're trying to avoid people having to do, right? Is if they have their own function, you don't want them to have to memoize this, okay? And so if we pass that in here, then I'm going to refresh this. There we go. Now it's just going like crazy. And I'm going to stop this now. Stop the madness. Stop. Okay. So the reason that's happening is because as we're making these state updates, we're coming through re-rendering this, our own state, our own set count function is brand new every time. And so then we come into use debounce, and React is like, oh, you're memoizing this, but actually the callback changed. So I'm going to recall, or I'm going to give you a new debounce. And then because you have this use effect depending on that debounce function, then it keeps on going forever. So, and this was just for your demonstration purposes, but it works out great for us. So the solution to this is actually basically what you were trying to do with your initial solution, just done a little bit differently. So we're going to make a ref just like you were doing. So we're going to say callback ref, React use ref. We'll pass the callback to that. And then we'll say React use layout effect, just like you were doing, to make sure that callback graph always stays updated to the current callback. And we could put the callback in here if we wanted to, but it really doesn't, who cares if we update it to the same thing that it was before. That doesn't matter. So we'll just leave that empty. And now instead of passing the callback as a dependency, we're actually going to pass the ref so that it always has the latest version. And so we're making a trade-off here because now when this function is going to, I really need to write a blog post about this because I think I need a little bit more time and different examples to show why this is a trade-off. It's not a problem, it's just a trade-off. But now when this debounce function is finally called, it's going to be calling the latest version of that function, which will have the latest version of all the variables, not the variables as they were at the time that function was, or the debounce function was initially created. This can lead to bugs in certain scenarios, which is why that's not the default anymore. That is what the default was with class components. That default changed. And I like the new default. I think the new default's better. But yeah, there are trade-offs. I need to write a blog post about this. But anyway, this is how you solve this problem. So now if we bring this back, we don't have to worry about keeping things stable. We can have them like created at any time. And we get all of the debounce niceness that we wanted to, even through state updates.
If you pass like the callback ref and call current inside the bounce, wouldn't you not have the issue that you mentioned? Instead of passing the current ref, no?
I'm not sure what you're suggesting.
Just passing like the callback ref and then calling dot current inside the bounce, wouldn't that fix the issue that you said?
Oh, you mean like that?
Yeah.
Right, forward along the arcs. Which issue? Of like always calling the latest version?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't make a difference because we are creating this function every time, but the closure that's actually going to be used, or sorry, it's this function right here. The closure that's actually going to be used is the first one that was created when React called this memo. So, and actually we are not creating this function every time. We're only creating this function when the delay changes. So when this function is going to get called. So we're only creating this when that delay changes. So this, if it referenced any variables outside of here, like it actually does, the delay, they need to be included in the dependency array. Otherwise, if we don't, then our delay could be stale. And so that's why we include this, so that we say, oh, the delay changed. We have a stale version of some variables that we're using in here. So let's rerun this memoization to get the latest version of this function, so that it has access to the latest of its dependencies. I'm not sure if that quite answers your question, though.
I think so. Just one more thing. Let me send it in the Discord. If you
And
do
I'm
it
gonna
like
back this up a little bit because it doesn't make a difference. This works fine this way. And I'm gonna actually grab my fork here and send that along as well. Okay. Snap.
if you do like function.current, and then you always get the current one when you call it, even though it's outside, right?
I'm not sure.
I send it on the Discord channel.
Gotcha. I guess so. I'm not sure what impact that makes on the rest. So now you're saying your debounce is aware of the fact that this is an object called current, or that has a property called current. And so you just pass the callback ref directly and have dot current here now. And something got messed up. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, so these are two ways to do the same thing. It doesn't actually change the behavior at all. I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting the difference would be.
Yeah, got to think more about it too.
Okay, cool. So if I were doing this today, this is the way I would do it. I hope that helps out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. All right, let's take a look. Idris, are you in here? Okay, looks like not. Question about blogging. Oh, yeah, okay. I've got some thoughts about this. I actually have a blog post about when I left Medium. And in here, I mentioned one thing that I think is important that, here, actually, I'll copy paste this. So that is domain. I think I mentioned it in here somewhere, but anyway, I basically, I would not blog on any platform where I don't control the URL, where I don't have complete control. Like I can redirect, I can do anything that I want to. When I was on Medium, the only reason that I decided to start blogging on Medium was because I got control over the URL, and I'm so glad. And that was a feature at the time. They don't allow that anymore. But I got grandfathered into this custom domain thing, and I had blog.kncdots.com. And now, when Medium started doing stupid stuff like this, I was like, I'm out. I'm going to make my own thing. And because I owned the domain, I was able to build a redirector thing. I spent an hour building this KCD blog redirector, and um, it it works out awesome. Initially, like I spent a bunch of time trying to like I made a netlify function. I don't think that even runs anymore. Maybe this like is a fallback. I think it may be like a fallback now, but yeah, so I just made a mapping of all of my blogs on blog.kenseydodds.com to the new version on kenseydodds.com/blog. And then this is what blog.kenseydodds.com goes to. So blog.kenseydodds.com, it goes to Netlify, which handles those redirects, and it just sends people over to the respective blog. So if I go here, yeah, so like, and the weird thing with Medium is that they have these IDs that are like the blog post ID, but then they also have the whole title of the post and then an ID at the end. That's the full title redirects. It's kind of weird, and they had a couple of weird things with emojis in the titles and stuff like that. That's what these are for. Yeah, and then we had the redirect fallback, and that's what that function is. But yeah, I wanted to show an example of one of these. So if I go to the merits of mocking, blog.kenseydodds.com/the merits of mocking, or yeah, that'll redirect to my website. If I hadn't had ownership over the URL, then I couldn't do that. And what it would look like instead is like medium.com/KentCDodds/the merits of mocking. That's what it would have looked like. And I would have sent them this garbage. And I've got links in newsletters and all sorts of things pointed to blog.kenseydodds.com/whatever, and it would have sent them right to this. What a pain would that have been? I don't know, I may not have moved it. I probably would have just added a thing to the top like, this blog has been moved, and SEO juice is gone. So I strongly advise two things when it comes to blogging. One, own the domain. You should own that platform. Two, I actually forgot what two was. Oh, yes. Don't spend so much time building your blog that you don't ever write anything. So like this happens a lot where somebody's like, I'm going to start blogging. And then they spend the next 2 months building a blog and then realizing that they don't want to write anything anymore, or just like never finish building the blog. So what I would recommend is like, just throw up something really quickly. Even if it's just a bunch of like GitHub gists or something. You don't control the domain there, but at least you can start writing and developing content as you're building this blog platform. And there are lots of different little tools that you can use for building content so that you can actually own the domain. So I would recommend using those. Now you can, another one of the reasons that people really like things like Medium or Dev2 or whatever is because there's like an audience there already who are just like waiting for content. And if you don't have 100,000 followers on Twitter or something, nobody's going to read your stuff. Well, when I started blogging, I didn't have 100,000 followers on Twitter. So there's that. Like it really comes down to consistency. I now have like 170 blogs or something like that, 165. And actually, I've got a broken build because I just finished a blog and pushed it up this morning, and or just before this, and it should be deployed by now, but it's not because it's a Gatsby site. But yeah, like build this stuff, work on it, and then you can own your domain. And if you do want to be in those different areas like Dev2 or whatever, most of these platforms support a the canonical link, so that your site still gets the SEO juice. I'm not exactly sure how all that works, and I used to do that, and then I asked people to just take it all down, because I prefer everybody coming to my site. And I've been blogging for, I think, weekly for 3 years. It takes a lot of time, but I've learned a lot in the process. And yeah, that's what I have to say about blogging. Good luck. Okay, cool. Victor, lazy loading. You've loaded a page. You click on a link to navigate to another route, which is lazily loaded. Oh, yeah, okay. That's actually an interesting question. So let's say that, let me just restate it so I make sure I understand. So users on the page, and they're just sitting around, do, life is good. And then a redeploy happens. So then the user clicks on the link to go to another page, and that resource is no longer available on the server because the hash changed. And so now, like, it just doesn't exist and they get an error. I venture to guess that when things just randomly don't work for you and you have to refresh, that is the cause a lot of the time. So that's an interesting situation. I actually have never personally dealt with this problem. I'm sure that I've given my users this experience, but I've never solved this problem. At PayPal, actually, we had an interesting situation where we were deploying something, and some of our users got a front end that pointed to a back end that didn't have the updates necessary yet. So like as we were deploying, putting our back end into all of the different server pools and whatever, they got the new front end, but they pointed to an old back end. Chaos ensued, and then we realized maybe we should make sure we push out the new features to the back end first, or I don't remember what we did about that. I think we just hoped it would never happen again. I can't remember. But yeah, so like similar problem. I'm not sure. I'm sure that somebody's looked into this problem and solved it. But yeah, I don't know. So one interesting thing to think about. I'm just thinking about how Remix is going to solve this problem. So the way that things work for them, it's actually super interesting. So you notice they've got like even object assign. This is one of their node modules that they depend on. They have like everything that's in your package JSON will go into its own individual resource from your server. Thank you, HTTP2. It's fair. I just learned about this today. That this is how that works. It's very interesting. And so yeah, code splitting is still a thing though for your own stuff. So if I go to here, we'll go to defining routes. Then I make this request that sends a manifest and then a URL, and it tells me the route that it wants to send people to, and this is going to return like the manifest, so that Remix can then request all of the different files and everything that it needs. And here's our JavaScript that it loads. And I have a feeling that in that scenario, your backend, which could have been redeployed in the time that we were looking at this page, will be able to handle that just fine, provided that that route still exists. And if it no longer exists, then the user's going to be like, "What the heck?" And then they'll refresh and they'll realize that that route no longer exists. And it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. You can't go there anymore. But if it still exists, then I think it should still actually work. Should actually work okay. So I don't know. I'm not sure how to solve this problem, but I have a feeling that Remix will not suffer from this problem. I notice Amber is here in the Zoom. I don't know if you seem to know a lot about Next.js. Do you know if Next solves this problem? And I don't know if you're available to answer, but if you are, you're welcome to. Anyway, good luck with that. Yeah, it looks like Amber's typing, so I'll continue while we wait for that. Ask for the following React text channel. Let me find that. It was, here we go. How to use the dev tools to walk through the examples. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it shouldn't be very complicated, but I trust you if you say it is. So let me just see what's going on. So this is 06 in the exercise. Remix, the build is so fast, or the dev server, the build is fine too, but the dev server is wicked fast. You just like, I started and here I am, and you don't have to wait at all. It's awesome. And like you make a change to a file or you move files all over the place, it is still fine. It still works. It's awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go to the exercise. We'll go to the isolated page, which is where you should be when you're working on this stuff. My favicon is still remix. If I do a hard reload, we're gonna get the hook. Yeah. Okay, so here we'll go to our sources, and I'm gonna open up exercise 06. Oh, whoops, that's the HTML page. See, we're loading an HTML page at this URL. That's what that is. So we're gonna go to 06 exercise JS. There we go. Okay, so then I put a breakpoint in here. I hit refresh, and there I am. Yeah, if I have something more substantial in here, so we go to 06 final, copy that, and put it in here, and then refresh again. And let's go to 06 again. There we go. I've got my Pokemon name. Yeah, I'm not sure what the trouble was for you. Sorry. I seem to be able to step through this just fine. So it looks like you're on Windows. I doubt that's the reason that it's not working for you, but yeah, I mean, I can probably step through Pokemon JS as well. And we'll play through here. And there it is. We're making our query. We go and do our fetch thing. And we'll continue to there. And there we've got our OK response. And here's our Pokemon. And if we continue step, that's going to get us back into here, where we are going to take that Pokemon and set it. So I don't know. Seems like it should be working. If you're on this page, then it actually, yeah, if you're not on the isolated page, it's possible that you're running into a problem here. So here, let's try this. And the reason that it's possible you could be running into a problem here is because you're in the wrong frame. So this area is an iframe to that isolated page. That's what it points to. And so if you're not in the right frame here, then you could be like, if you're in the top frame or whatever, then that might be the problem possibly. But I'm not sure. Sorry to not be as much help as I potentially could be. Yeah, good luck. Thank you for being awesome. Okay, so Emmer, here's the question. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually I might ask that of Ryan and Michael, because I'm kind of curious about how they solve this problem. In fact, Victor, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to copy this and put it into Remix. And I'll let you know on the Discord, Victor, if they give me an answer to that. Okay, cool. So I think that's time. We're 11 minutes early, so I do have some time to answer any last questions if anybody's got them. Other than that, I think I'll just wrap up and go hang out with my family. Not to say, like, if you have a question, feel free to ask. You're not like holding me away from my family or anything. Okay, I think we're good. This was fun. Thanks for hanging out. We will see you in the future. So what we've got here is office hours Monday, and I don't think that I've got anything going on. I have my scheduled cancellations here. So yeah, I don't have a scheduled cancellation, but let me just double check that there's nothing unexpected going on. Yeah, everything should be totally fine. So yeah, I'll just look forward to seeing you on Monday, and I hope you all have a stellar rest of your day and week and weekend and whatever.